In today's lesson, I'm going to show you Jim Hall's process to create beautiful and melodic sounding lines that sound kind of like this. In this video, I'll be drawing from Jim Hall's masterclass, both Part 1 and Part 2, which you can find linked in the video description below. You'll also find the link to my Patreon where you can find the Guitar Pro and PDF files for not only every example in this lesson, but the etude at the end where we combine everything together and the full lesson breakdown on that etude, so make sure to check that out. All right, so let's begin with the core of Jim's melodic playing, which is motivic development. This is simply the idea of taking a small group of intervals or notes and changing them to fit whatever sound you're playing throughout a song. To begin, let's just start with 2 notes and then put the interval of a second between them. Now let's take this motif and move it through a scale or mode. For this lesson, let's use a Dorian since I can drone my open A string and you can hear the notes in relation to that. Here's the scale. Now let's take our motif through that scale. Now we could take that motif backwards as well. Or we can also take each one of these 2-note cells and jump around them instead of just moving up or down the scale. Now try adding different types of rhythms. So instead of just quarter notes, let's include 1/8 notes into the mix and add a swing feel to it. Or try throwing in upbeats into the mix. And you can also include 16th notes as well. Now you can see that with just a 2-note motif, we can create lots of different melodic ideas. But what happens when we add another interval into the mix of our motif? Now let's take our interval, being a second, and add another interval. Let's add a 4th below it, and it'll sound something like this. Now, just like before, we can take this 3-note motif and move it through a scalar mode. Let's use a Dorian again. And of course, we need to play it backwards as well. But it doesn't stop there. We can create even more with our 3-note motif than we did with our 2-note motif. Not only can we play the notes backwards or forwards, but we can also do that with the interval structure. So instead of playing a 4th and a 2nd, now let's play a 2nd, then a 4th. This is called inverting the motif. You could, of course, play this new inversion throughout the scale going up and down as well. Let's combine everything that we worked on with this motif so far. So we're going to play it forwards and backwards, as well as with the inversions and adding rhythm to it. So now let's apply this thinking to a 2-5-1 chord progression. So for this example, let's use the key of G. So we would have a 2-5-1 in that key being A minor, D7, and G major 7. Now because A Dorian is a part of the diatonic sound of G major 7, all the ideas that we've worked out with our motifs will work over all the chords in this 2-5-1. However, if you wanted to create more tension and release in our lines using this motif, we could take our motif and move it through the altered scale over the 5 chord. So in this case, we have D7, and we would play E flat melodic minor over that D7 to get the altered sound. So now let's take our 3-note motif, or our interval structure, and move it through E flat melodic minor. You could, of course, play this forwards, backwards, and invert it as well. So now when we play this over a 2-5-1, what we're going to do is play G major, or the A Dorian sounds, over the 2 and the 1 chord, and then over the 5, we're going to play our motif over E flat melodic minor to get something that sounds kind of like this. So you can see what really interesting and beautiful lines this kind of thinking can create. The next step using this would be to incorporate your motivic ideas with other things. So for example, in our 2-5-1 chord progression, we could start out with more arpeggios and then move to the motivic ideas. Or you could also reverse it and start out with our motivic ideas and move to more arpeggio-based sounds. Or you could also throw in classic jazz language and mix that in with our motivic ideas. Really, the possibilities are endless with this. So to practice this concept, I would work on just using one motif and practice it all across the neck, going both horizontally and vertically. And then after doing that, I would really slowly move the motif that I'm working on to other types of sounds. Remember that for this lesson, we used a certain set of intervals, being the 4th and the 2nd, but it could be any amount of notes or any amount of intervals. You could have a 2nd, a minor 3rd, and a 4th, and so on. And those would all create different sounds and combinations. So to demonstrate what we did today, I'm going to take our motif and apply it to one chorus of the great standard pentapause and apply everything that we learned today. Again, if you would like the Guitar Pro and PDF file for not only this etude, but every example that we covered in this lesson, make sure to check out my Patreon, which you can find linked in the video description below. Alright, thank you everyone for watching this video about Jim Hall's secret to his beautiful and melodic soloing. If you want more Jim Hall lessons, make sure to check out the video linked in the corner of the screen where I talk about how Jim Hall makes guitar chords both easy and very melodic. Also, I always want to give a shout out to the Patreons of this channel. Thank you all so much, and you keep this all going. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and remember to always keep swinging.